Today's a pretty exciting day because my dad, my brother, and I are flying down to Marathon together.
I'm arriving at the airport a little bit earlier so that I can complete pre-flight and have the airplane all ready to go when they arrive.
It's the first flight that the three of us have made together in a private plane since December 30th of 1984.
My Uncle Phil bought my dad a couple of hours of flight time for Christmas that year. Rented an airplane out of this airport and flew out over the Everglades. None of us knew it then, but that was the last time my dad would ever fly as pilot in command. The weather looks like it'll be good VFR all the way, so I'm going to fly down along the coast and take the scenic route. Finished pre-flight, waited for Dad and Tim to arrive. After a quick passenger safety briefing, it was time to get everyone on board, knock out the rest of the pre-takeoff checklist items, start the engine, and get ready to go.
Clear!
Pre-flight done and my passengers comfortably aboard, it was time to get our taxi clearance. We taxied to the runway 10 run-up area where we had to wait for a little bit. It seemed like we weren't the only ones that thought it was a great day to go flying. There were a number of airplanes ahead of us in the run-up area and holding short of runway 10. Plus, there were even a couple of arrivals. We completed our run-up and then waited our turn as the tower controller skillfully managed all of the activity. And then it was our turn to take off as we departed to the east and then made a right turn to head south along the shoreline. What a gorgeous day. Heading south, we'd have to descend to 500 feet so we could fly through Fort Lauderdale's airspace. As they enjoyed the scenery, I got clearance to transition through Fort Lauderdale's airspace at 500 feet, and then I connected with Miami approach to pick up flight following, which would come in handy a little bit later in our flight. As we continued south, we'd be out from under Miami's Class Bravo airspace and would be able to climb to a higher altitude. We'd still have to maintain VFR cloud clearance requirements of 500 feet below or 1,000 feet above the clouds. As we got south of Miami, I noticed the clouds starting to thicken, and I decided to climb to a higher altitude so we'd get up above them. I climbed to 3,000 so that we could maintain radio contact with Miami and keep our VFR flight following. I then requested and obtained permission to climb to 4,500, which I thought would keep us above the broken cloud layer. As we continued, I realized that we might not be able to maintain VFR right at 4,500. I contacted Miami Approach and got them to give us a pop-up IFR clearance. Problem solved. Now that we were IFR, I didn't have to worry about cloud clearance requirements anymore. Instead, all I had to worry about was flying the altitude and route that I was assigned, which was 6,000 feet direct to Marathon. A key part of my pre-flight planning is getting a thorough weather briefing. Even so, got to be prepared for things to change. As an example, the forecast today said the skies were clear below 12,000 at Marathon. Go figure. I got my instrument rating for days just like today, and it was great to have the opportunity to put it to use. At 6,000 feet, we were well above the clouds, but there were enough breaks that Dad and Tim were able to look out the left side and still get a good view of the Keys as we journeyed on. Approximately 12 miles east of Marathon, we were instructed to make our initial descent down to 3,000 feet. Once we had the airport in sight, ATC would clear us for the visual approach to runway 7. The latest AWOS information had the winds out of the east from 100 degrees. We'd be landing on runway 7, and I'd be expecting about a 7 to 10 knot crosswind from the right as we touched down. We'd have to descend through a broken cloud layer, and then we'd be able to see the airport. At that point, we could expect to be cleared for the visual approach. As soon as we got below that cloud layer, I reported airport in sight. We canceled our IFR flight plan, and we were lined up perfectly for a 45-degree entry into the left downwind for runway 7. I announced our position and our intentions to make a full-stop landing on the CTAF frequency. There was virtually no traffic in the pattern other than a Cessna that was on short final. With traffic in sight, we continued our descent and prepared to turn base. Christine and I flew to Key West in November, and I thought the approach into Key West was spectacular. This approach into Marathon today was just as stunning in its own right. As we continued on short final, I got a look at the windsock, and it was moving around a bit. The winds were out of the east, but the wind direction was varying, and so was the intensity. Continued down, I focused on keeping right aileron in for the crosswind and making sure I had enough left rudder in to keep us on centerline. I ended up overcorrecting a bit, and we touched down and left the centerline. While my passengers were happy with the landing, I was a little bit disappointed with myself. Now that we were safely on the ground, we'd head into the FBO to pay for fuel and see if they had a courtesy car available. Luckily for us, they did. We had originally planned to eat at a restaurant called Island Fish Company, but the FBO staff recommended a locally owned place called Fishtails, and we decided to check it out. Fishtails is the oldest fish market and restaurant in Marathon. The fish dip, conch chowder, Johnny Rambler sandwich, and key lime pie were out of this world. I'm definitely giving Fishtails the midlife flying crisis seal of approval. After an awesome flight down and a spectacular lunch, the three of us headed back to the airport for our flight home. That flight would also prove to be memorable, and I'll be sharing that in a separate video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when I post it.